If I could describe the Get My Life tour in one word, it would be vulnerability. Showing up for yourself is so important. Welcome to the Get My Life tour. I'm your host, Lydia T. Blanco. Hey y'all, and welcome to the Get My Life tour. It is me, your host, Lydia T. Blanco. And as always, I am excited because you decided to show up here on the Get My Life tour, take center stage, practice vulnerability, and be here. Thank you for being present. Thank you for tuning in and for being on tour with me. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. If you've been tuning in time and time again, I appreciate you in the way that you show up for yourself, in the way that you show up here on the Get My Life tour. I am in awe of 2020. And I know some people are probably over it, waiting for the last 60 some odd days to conclude so that they can get to 2021. But if you're anything like me, you don't know what 2021 is going to entail. So you're surrendering. 2020 has really been a year of surrendering for me. It has been a year of sacrifice, a year of uncertainty, but I have also felt this sense of calm that I've never felt before. And as I continue on my Get My Life tour, I'm really feeling like the only way is up. It is. As we wrap up 2020 and as we enter November, I'm also hyped because this concludes the second season of the Get My Life tour, which I anticipated at some point on this journey, but I wasn't quite sure. And I was trying to figure it all out. When do I start? When do I stop? And I started off this season with Randy B, who was incredible. And we spoke about how to celebrate transitions as wins. Let me stop myself really quickly because you're probably like, Lydia's going on a rant. I'm not. I actually just flew back home to Harlem from the Bay. So I was living it up with my family yesterday in San Francisco. Now I'm back here in Harlem, just wrapped up an incredible evening with one of my closest friends on earth. And I'm thrilled to be back here and conclude this year here in New York. But I'm going to get to that a little later. So if you hear me stumbling over my words, know it is because several hours ago I got off of a plane and I am now back in Harlem for the stop of the tour. But let me get back to our regularly scheduled program. Okay. So I started off this season with Randy B talking about how to celebrate transitions as wins. And no one could have imagined that I couldn't have imagined that talking about transitions at the top of the year would then lead to this pandemic. If you asked me if a pandemic was coming, I'd probably tell you what I heard about what was brewing up, in China, but I didn't know what impact it would have on me personally, professionally, and in just so many ways, on people all over the world. But I didn't realize that conversation was preparing me for so many of the moves that I needed to make this year. Having that conversation with Randy B truly prepared me to celebrate transitions as wins. I had that conversation with her in January, went home that month as well. And then I talked about the importance of going home, right? And not taking things personally. It was something that happened to me when I actually touched down in the Bay in January. I was super excited about a relationship and being around family. and spending time at home. And the Most High really spoke to me about home being where the heart is and finding home everywhere I go. Because, in the spirit of alchemy, so much of what we're looking for is inside of us. Going home and home has been it has been such an incredible part of my journey, right? And going home for me and looking inward this year has been what I have needed, honestly. And I've done that work a lot here this season on the Get My Life tour, thinking about all the places I've been. The whole idea of this tour is that we go from place to place. And I've literally been bouncing around between coasts here in Harlem, in the Bay Area. And at the top of the year, before everything was shut down, I was traveling quite a bit before then. I really feel like this season has manifested so much, and having the opportunity to sit down with so many dynamic women has been incredible. The second guest this season here on the Get My Life tour was Addie Raw. And we talked about art and ambition and living off the canvas. That was such a dynamic conversation. As a creative myself, I'm not an artist in the grand scheme of things as it relates to like painting. I cannot draw. Fun fact, I cannot draw to save my life, right? But I am a writer, poet, and I love the arts. So having that conversation with her about her entrepreneurial journey as a creator and as a creative was truly inspiring. There were moments where she needed to say no and turn down the offer of what she thought would be of her life, and receiving abundance afterwards was so refreshing. I can't begin to rattle off the number of things that I've had to say no to in this season, but I do know, and I can say that every no has prepared me for the next opportunity. That leads me to the next stop on the tour, where I actually took center stage and I talked about the pep talk. Look, I don't know about you, but I have needed to give myself so many pep talks, okay? And the reason why is because I really, at some point, I don't know what point, but I really began the negative self-talk. And I didn't know how much that was playing out in every area of my life. It's one thing to speak words of affirmation. We all need to be affirmed, but I believe it's another thing to speak life. And it is a powerful tool or a device to be able to speak life over yourself in moments of uncertainty, moments of discouragement, moments of disappointment, and of course, in moments of greatness, right? That pep talk, or being able to give ourselves a pep talk is extremely critical. Sometimes we're waiting for someone else to come and hype us up, or say all of the right things. And that's not what we need. What we need to be able to do is speak what we need to hear and hear ourselves saying that, so that we can affirm what it is that we need to have affirmed, right? It is so dope being able to take center stage and talk about whatever, myself or a guest feels led to share. This has truly been a transformative experience. And I can't think of any other person who I would want to do this instead of me. I know that probably was like, wait, what are you going to say? I'm so glad that I stepped up to the plate and hit it home and have been able to hit it home with so many other women. And the reason why I feel the need to say this is because I'm talking about speaking life, right? But we also have to give ourselves props. But sometimes we have these things that we know we are called to do. And we don't do them because we have so many other excuses and reasons as to why we can't get the thing done. We can't birth something. We can't get something out of our head. We can't manifest. And a lot of times it's just us, right? We're in our own way. And I'm so glad that I said yes to the Get My Life tour. I would be really devastated had I not taken center stage in my life. And I can say that confidently because I am so on fire for this podcast. And there is something that happens every time I have a conversation, with myself aloud or with a guest. It is a feeling that is unmatched. I know little Lydia is having the desires of her hearts and her needs met every time I share an episode of the Get My Life tour with someone, or, it publishes to a platform. And I'm glad that I said yes, right? And I say this to encourage you to say yes to the thing that you've been wanting to do, to that burning desire, to the calling on your life. If you have not already, right? And I don't mean to get all preachy, but the truth of the matter is that it would hurt your feelings more than you know if you find out that someone else beat you to the punch. No, they cannot do what you've been called to do. But if they do something similar and they do it first, it just might get to you in ways that you may not realize or have ever imagined. On the next stop of the Get My Life tour, I was able to sit down with a sister friend of mine, someone who I've been getting to know, more intimately over the last year and a half. And that is Brittany Dandy. She's the founder of the Success Supper. And we really had this intimate conversation about how to survive your ambition. If you tuned into that stop of the tour, not only did you get a seat at the table, but you left full. We were able to talk about the invitation that so many of us receive and the ones that we don't receive, and how that impacts us as women who do business relationally, as we network, as we show up in different spaces, and what that looks like, especially as someone who is ambitious as I don't know what, right? Brittany Dandy is a writer, a producer. She's a strategist. She's a wife. She's a soon-to-be mom. And we broke down ambition in a way that, or let's say she broke down ambition in a way that was so mind-blowing, right? What they don't tell you about ambition is how that very thing can get in your way along your journey, right? I got so much from that conversation, and I'm not even going to give you a snippet, right? Typically when I do these recaps, it's just me recapping it. You have to go back and listen. Maybe in the next season, you'll get the recap with the snippets. Tune in. But it was such a good conversation. I have had to survive my own ambition. And ways that I've done that is by being kind to myself, practicing grace, truly taking the time it requires to do something well and being okay with that time. As someone who has this go-get-it mentality, I have had to learn how to survive my ambition. And in conversation with Brittany Dandy, I definitely got some tools I needed as I continue to build, as I continue to journey. After that, I took center stage by myself to talk about passing through on our journeys. and not just getting from one place to the next, but honestly being present. I have gone so many places. I'm so grateful for my passport stamps, for all the trips I've taken and all the places I've been able to see and explore and taste food and this and that. But what I can honestly tell you is that a lot of those times I was not fully present because I was so consumed with worry and doubt and imposter syndrome and so many other things, right? It was like I was passing through, I don't want to say like a zombie, right? But I just was not present. And I'm not sure if you can relate, but that is not the best experience to look back on when you can remember the time and the place, but you remember what you were thinking about more than what you were experiencing. Right. So on that stop, I took center stage to talk about, life as this beautiful journey and how, to get from one place to the next with intention. Oh my. So my conversation with Stacey Michelle, who is my soror and a media maven and a fashion influencer and style expert, was incredible. We talked about how to live in style on your own terms. It's one thing to be fashionable and look good and feel good in what you're wearing, but it's another thing to honestly open up about your lifestyle and what inspires you to live a life of luxury, right? And create a lane for yourself. That was the conversation I had with Stacey Michelle, and it was incredible. So I would encourage you to go back and listen to that one as well. Okay. So on the following episode, and I really should have these things numbered for you all, but I'm referring to my notes, and I do not have them numbered, but I would encourage you, this is a small commercial, visit thegetmylifetour.com, tune in using Anchor FM, or you can listen on any platform where podcasts are available, and you will see all of these episodes in numeric order there. Okay. So on the following stop of the Get My Life tour, I talked about trusting your gut. And intuition is such a real thing. And I don't understand why so many people sleep on their intuition. That gut feeling is there for a reason. Okay. I believe that we are spiritual beings having this human experience. And that gut is spirit to me, honestly. There's so much that we gain when we trust our gut, especially when everything else around you is calling out to you. I can honestly attribute so much of where I am to the ability of me to discern between different energies and vibrations and being able to listen to my gut. Do I know everything? No. Hell no, I don't. But being able to listen to my gut has really served as a compass for me as I've journeyed. And I can't remember everything that I said on that side of the tour, honestly, but I would encourage you to listen to that, download it, and share it with someone, especially as we enter a new season. My gosh, we have spent the last 7 months, 3 seasons have passed. We started off this quarantine, the end of winter, right? Spring, summer, fall. It's so, oh my gosh, this is wild, right? Okay. Let me not, digress too much, but share that episode. Okay. Ooh, okay. This next stop of the Get My Life tour was incredible. Okay. So I sat down with Ashley Kirkwood, who I am grateful to call a friend, and we spoke about confidence as a currency and the currency that a lot of us are lacking, right? And beyond, it being this valuable asset, We also spoke about Ashley's journey, her career journey. She is a lawyer. She's also an entrepreneur. She has her own practice. And she once made over $300,000 and realized that she wasn't happy and that she had to become more confident in order to get from where she was to where she wanted to be. And our conversation was transformative for me because she took me from childhood all the way to her, adult and married and mothering self. And it was such a beautiful journey because she started with little Ashley in the mirror, receiving affirmations and being told who she was. And somewhere along her journey, it wasn't that she forgot, right? But there were people who tried to take or undermine her confidence. And when I tell you, I had some things to deal with, and I knew that I had to show up differently as a young woman in the media industry, as a podcast host, as a daughter, as a sister, a friend, and so many other things, right? I realized that confidence is so valuable. And I was so glad to be able to have that conversation with her. My goodness. Tune in. Please do yourself a favor and tune in to that stop on the tour. Confidence is the currency you need. All right. So early April, I had a conversation with myself. And it was a conversation as I was preparing to transition from my place of employment at the time. I knew it was time. I wasn't sure. It was at the top of the pandemic, right? And I was like, Lydia, you crazy. You're crazy. You were just in California, then you went to Vegas, you came back to New York, excuse me. I was about to speak Spanish. And then you went back to the Bay, right? And I was like, okay, Lydia, well, it's time to have this conversation. It's time. Now what? COVID propelled many people into creativity. For others, it pushed them into a gray area of uncertainty, But a lot of us had to come to a crossroad, and some of us hit a wall, right? It was like, which way do I go? Or, oof, does it really end here? So I really took the time to talk about ways to manage your time and energy while striving and as you are being called to create. In April, I really had to have a series of difficult conversations with myself, with the Most High, in my journal, and conversation in my car by the water about how it was that I needed to manage my time. I was still employed. I was trying to figure out working on East Coast hours on the West Coast. I was waking up at the crack of dawn so that I could be online at the same time. And I was producing and doing more than, not even that was asked of me or expected of me, just doing more because that's what I was used to doing and dealing with people who, didn't have my best interests at heart. And I was trying to figure out a lot. Okay. And I literally had to create a system that would allow me to better manage my time and energy. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, look, Lord, I'm in surrender mode. And it was difficult. It was. But in that moment, I knew that it was time. And my next question was, now what? And I'm so glad that the Most High answered. So tune in to that stop of the tour. And I hope that you get what you need. A lot of us are feeling like this pandemic is coming to an end. We're in a second wave, and a lot of us are still honestly getting our rhythm. I still am getting my rhythm, but I'm grateful that I'm further than I was. I'm further along my journey than I was before. So if that can be helpful to anyone, please do tune in. Oh my. Okay. So the next stop on the tour was Raima Calloway, or was with Raima Calloway, who is like family. She is family. And my soror and sister, Ronisha Johnson, they are the co-founders of the Vegan Hood Chefs. I have literally grown up with these women. And we, oh my gosh, have had our own experiences, some shared, and they are best friends. It has been, it's been a while since we had this conversation. I believe we had this conversation, oh my gosh, in April as well. And we talked about everything, okay? The title of this episode was I Got You, Sis. And it was about the dynamic of their relationship as well as ours collectively and just women in general. We talked about loss. We talked about their business, of course, the Vegan Hood Chefs, environmental justice and racism and food equity. We talked about sisterhood, experience loss and grief, and building community and self-love. Sounds like a lot. It's because it was. We've been knowing each other for years, for decades, okay? And there have been a number of experiences that we've had and that they share that we spoke about. It was a very powerful conversation. It was a healing conversation for myself. They expressed the same sentiments. It was a 2-hour long conversation. But so many people resonated with it, especially young women from where we're from, right? From those parts of San Francisco who grew up similarly to how we grew up. You know, I will be forever grateful for the time that they took to pour in to me and share so freely here on the Get My Life tour. A very hard-hitting, intimate, and impactful conversation. I challenge you to have those conversations with your girlfriends. And of course, you know, some people you can't go as deep with as you would with others, but I really do encourage you to sit down and talk about the experiences that you once had with them as you continue to pursue relationship with these people. It's not enough in my eyes to just have, you know, experiences with people and it's like, oh, remember that one time, right? But sometimes there's so, I feel like there's so much healing that can take place when you actually sit down and go through things with a fine-tooth comb, right? Because it's one thing to reminisce, but it's another thing to heal through your memory. That is something that I really cherish, that conversation and, you know, the opportunity to do that with my friends who are still living. Quite honestly, you know, as we talked about loss and grief, there are so many people who we lost along the way. And that may not be your experience, right, as it relates to your friends or your family members. But I do think it is worth sitting down and taking the time to reflect and converse, laugh, cry, take those deep breaths and just pause and be present in that as you reflect. Wow. Okay. So the next stop on the tour was me. I took center stage and I talked about perfection being the enemy of greatness. I was told that, I guess 6 years ago now by a mentor. And as a recovering perfectionist, it is something that I always remind myself of. You know, one thing that I've heard that I believe is just as powerful as the saying, perfection is the enemy of greatness, is that, what is it? How did I forget that quick? Done is better than perfect. So there we go. Done is better than perfect. Those two sayings, those two quotes, those two reminders are something that I actually hold very close to me. I hold them very closely because I have a tendency of being hard on myself. I don't really know anyone who has been harder on me than me. I mean, maybe my dad. But at the same time, I'm just like, look, if anybody can go hard on Lydia, it is Lydia. And I'm honestly unlearning that and having to relearn some things and unlearn them again and put them into effect because it's real out here in these streets, okay? It truly is. Look, I don't want to keep you too long recapping the entire season, but I will go over the rest of the season numerically so that it is easier for you to catch up or to, tune back in and have some kind of reference point, right? So on the next stop of the tour, I spoke with Morgan Owens, who I have, befriended. She is a sweetheart. We talked about how to find your sparkle. She is an author, an entrepreneur based in Ohio. She's dope. And we talked about, finding your sparkle as a young woman, and she shared about her insecurities and her health journey and how she found her sparkle and how she's helping others find their sparkle as well. Beautiful episode 37. Okay, here goes some numbers for you so you can have a reference point of the Get My Life tour. Morgan, thank you. You are so magical. And I'm so glad that you sparkle the way that you do. On the 38th episode of the Get My Life tour, I talked about the benefits of putting yourself first. Now, that sounds kind of odd for me to say because I have had so much trouble putting myself first. But at the end of the day, you have to take care of self. And that is difficult at times. But look, if you don't prioritize yourself, you'll often be dissatisfied. And that's something that I've learned. So I talked about the act of putting yourself first and ways to do that and the radical act of self-preservation. On the 39th stop of the Get My Life tour, it has been a long season. I appreciate everyone who has been tuned in, who has downloaded, subscribed, who have shared their insights with me. But on the 39th stop of the Get My Life tour, I spoke to my soror. She is incredible. Okay. Shay M. Lawson. We talked about, she spoke so eloquently about helping others secure and protect their intellectual property, but she also shared intimately about her journey to becoming this high profile lawyer and her work with the academy and others. It was such a good conversation. And we also talked about trusting and believing as you pivot. That was the premises of the conversation. Her story is one that you could not imagine, but trusting who you've been called to be during uncertainty, and ways to protect your influence in business as an entrepreneur, was also a part of the conversation. I'd encourage you to go listen to that because as you ascend, as you pivot, no matter which direction you go, trust has to be a part of the process. All right. Episode 40, I took center stage to talk about something calling you higher, right? And what it's like when your name is called. Tune in, tune in. Oh, this was a good one. 41, Faith Without Works is Dead. I spoke with Monique Rodriguez, who's the founder of Mael. She spoke about overcoming tragedy, and how that brought her closer to her dreams. Many know her for her beautiful tresses and her trusted brand, Mael Organics. It was a great conversation about her journey into the hair care industry, and I encourage you to check it out. Episode 41. Look, 42, I went hard, okay? Because I have had no issue bragging on other folk, but I do this thing where I take, the back seat, and I was like, nah. So episode 42, I talked about let them know who you are, okay? Let me tell you something. I have been sleeping on myself, and, 2 years ago, I was like, nah, bruh, not anymore. right? And that was me talking to myself, even though I'm a young lady. But you got to let people know who you are, right? Auntie Yama says you can't teach anyone how to treat you or how to love you, right? But I said you can't let them know who it is that they are dealing with, okay, as you show up. So that's what I spoke about on the Get My Life tour on that stop, right? This was a good stop on the tour, how to go from vision to manifestation. I spoke with Larry L. Lipkins, who is the founder and the creator of A Woman with Vision. And that was a really good conversation. You know, a vision without a plan is merely a dream, is a quote that someone once said. And a lot of people use it, but I'm not sure who to attribute it to properly, right? But we talked about how to strategize to win and how, you know, she is helping women really execute on their visions. She once had an organization, Vision Boards Over Brunch, and it was something that I was so excited about speaking with her about. So tune in right to that episode. Ooh, June 15th. Okay. This stop of the tour was good. I actually just left my job, a 9 to 5, and I talked about the only way being up, right? Where do we go from here? Lord knows. I had no idea. Nevertheless, I talked about the only way being up. Sometimes we don't know which direction we're going, but if you know who you are and you have that confidence and you know that God's got you, the only way is up. So tune in, okay? Tune in. Oh, this was also a great stop on the tour. I spoke with Lauren Rose Miller, and that was Lauren Rosenmiller. We talked about managing the responsibility of generational legacy and building wealth. That was episode 45. Lauren is a beast, okay? It's one thing to talk about generational wealth, but when you're talking about legacy, that is an entirely different conversation. And she really breaks down the two. A lot of these conversations around wealth and legacy are really trendy. But this young lady, I believe, is, I don't want to say, she's a 5th generation entrepreneur, okay? Who is working to carry on her father's legacy and teach others about the difference between generational wealth and legacy. When you want to talk about money, when you want to talk about leaving something behind, talk to Lauren Rosenmiller, okay? Tune into episode 45 of the Get My Life tour. Look, there are so many other women who I have to shout out. Shy 1,000, who talked about how to hold space for yourself after experiencing burnout. I came back and I spoke about, having to be your own best friend. That was something. Didn't think I would have that conversation, but I was so glad that I did. I also took center stage to talk about the art of following up. I had one of the most anticipated conversations that I knew I would have in this season. And it was with my soror, mentor, big sister, friend, Elisa Gums. And it was a love letter to mothers without children. And it was to remind these women and men as well, right? A love letter to fathers without children as well, that you are not alone. Elisa opened up with all of her heart about her fertility journey and what that was like for her and her husband, what it was like, pressing forward after such a traumatic experience for her that she's learned from and that she's healing from. And it was the first time she spoke publicly about her fertility journey. So I'm forever grateful. It was a conversation we had a year ago, a little over a year ago now. Nearly 2, my goodness, in a airport, at the airport gate. And she came and she took center stage. And I'm telling you right now, if you know someone or you've had a similar experience, with not receiving the results you were expecting as it relates to your fertility journey, I think that this stop on the tour was truly created with you in mind. And that's episode 49 of the Get My Life tour. I also took center stage with the beautiful Erica Diaz. We talked about in life and business, you have to faith it until you make it. Faith it until you make it is also the title of her book. Dope conversation. She is from the Bay Area, Richmond, California, to be exact. She's an entrepreneur, creator of the Table of 20. And she is now a certified florist. She's doing her thing in Atlanta as the owner of the B Firm PR with her sister. Great conversation. Tune in. Now, on the next stop of the tour, I took center stage to talk about how others benefit when you doubt yourself. I do not believe there is any benefit in doubt. Who gonna check me? I just don't think there is, honestly. There is no benefit in doubt. And when you doubt yourself, so many people come up off of that. Like, they want to literally use that as a breeding ground for their success. Look, that's how I feel. All right. So on the next stop of the Get My Life tour, I took center stage with A. Margot Blair. We talked about the power of collaboration over competition, a conversation that, a number of people are interested in having, but the way that we had that conversation, I am forever grateful for, because we have had similar experiences in working with women our age, younger, older, and her story of how she has used collaboration to get to where she is extremely empowering. So I'd encourage you to check out episode 53 of the Get My Life tour. This time around, do it for yourself. Episode 54 of the Get My Life tour was so inspiring for me. I've done so much for other people. I've done so much to get where I am. And a lot of that I don't think has been about me. But on that stop of the tour, I talked about doing something for yourself. And I don't know what it is that you need to do for yourself, but look, do it. Do it. That was episode 54. Episode 55, I took center stage with Nafisa Carter, who is an entrepreneur and stylist based in the Carolinas. And she talked about the ability to have it all once you believe in yourself. Beautiful conversation with her about self-esteem and perseverance and taking a leap of faith and betting on yourself. Check that out. Okay. Now, on the next stop of the Get My Life tour, I spoke with Letitia Action Jackson, and we talked about living your best life, and how that is an inside job. She is an Olympian. She is doing incredible things all around the world, inspiring women to be physically fit, and spiritually fit. Great conversation. Tune in. Now, look, on the next stop of the tour, I took center stage to talk about you deserving the best contrary to your belief. Okay. So many of us don't think we deserve the best, and I don't know where that comes from, but it's a very real thing. And look, contrary to your disbelief, you do deserve the best. Tune into that episode, get what you need, and know that you are deserving. On the 57th stop on the Get My Life tour, I sat down with Sherelle Sampson, who I adore. We talked about having everything you need to get started. Oh, can you imagine all the places you'd go if you realized you had enough? You had everything you needed. I could not be more excited about the way that conversation went with Sherelle. She was so candid about her experience as a professional and an entrepreneur in the natural hair care industry, in the wellness industry, doing her work. She is one of the most poised businesswomen I've ever spoken to. She is on top of her game. She knows her business inside and out. She knows her industry inside and out. She knows herself inside and out. She is a mother, a wife, a doer, a follower of Christ. And she is also someone who freely gives, tune in to episode 57. Okay. If you have not, there is so much there for you. And I look forward to you tuning in. Before I recap the next episode, I do want to say, I want to hear from you. We are entering the 3rd season of the Get My Life tour. I want to hear from you. If it's not on social media, be sure to email me. Visit the Get My Life tour. Let me know your thoughts. You can let me know there. You can email me directly at joinme@thegetmylifetour.com and tell me what you've gotten so far. What do you want to hear more of? What do you want to hear less of? Like, I'm open to critiques. I want to hear from you because this is not about me. This is not about, putting myself out there and being heard and all these other things. As much as it is, it's not. And honestly, it's not about that, right? It's about getting what we need, the answers to the questions that life throws at us when we don't have the answers, or we weren't prepared, for the question itself, right? I want to hear from you. On the next stop of the Get My Life tour, I spoke about time being of the essence. We don't ever have as much time as we need, or as much time that we think we have. And with that, I spoke about, some time management tools, and, the present being so valuable and being so generous. Oh, the next stop was so good. We spoke about love. I spoke with Jonte Rashawn, who is a relationships expert and author. We talked about prioritizing love during the pandemic. This was not too long ago, so I'd encourage you to go back and listen to that conversation about embodying our own and becoming our own expectation, dating standards, her journey, and finding her husband and being who she needed and how she's helping other women and men, live their best love lives. Oh, who was next? Okay, I took center stage to talk about loss as leverage. Let me tell you something. There have been so many things that I have lost over the course of my lifetime. There are things that I remember very vividly. There are other things that I have to squint and roll my eyes up to the back of my head and remember. And I still take account for those things. Relationships. I feel like people, places, and things, right? All of those things. But, when you really use them as tools to level up or as leverage, it works in your favor, right? Not everything can be replaced, but there is an opportunity with every loss. At least I believe so. More recently, I spoke with Katara McCarty, who is the founder of Excel app. We talked about needing to get rid of the idea that we have to wait to excel. She recently launched the Excel app, and it is for Black, Indigenous women of color. And it is the only app on the market created by a Black woman for us, and by us. We all need to take those deep breaths. She spoke about her journey and the inspiration for the app and all of the deep breaths, the moments of pause throughout the course of her life as a young mother, as a biracial Black woman in the Midwest, and as she shows up and does her work. The week before last, I spoke about shying away from expecting you from other people. I, for so long, have done things and not with the expectation that I'd get anything in return, but that I'd get me in return at minimum. And I realized no one can give me me. And that's okay. I had to learn how to become okay with that because I became disappointed. And then I realized I was disappointing myself because no one can be Lydia Blanco. You feel me? No one can be Lydia T Blanco. And that's okay. But somewhere along our journeys, we have to remember that we're not going to get us in return. And every time we do, we set ourselves up for failure. You know, that wasn't even the week before last. That was actually the last stop on the Get My Life tour. But like I said at the beginning of this episode, I just flew cross country. Okay. You know, I've been thinking about what the next stop on the Get My Life tour looks like, right? Not the next episode, but the next stop. Preparing for season 3, having these really, what's the adjective I want to use? These profound conversations with so many of these women. You know, in season 3, I'm really looking forward to men joining the conversation. Yes, you heard me correctly. I have been asked time and time again, Lydia, when you gonna let the gentleman come on the podcast? And is this only like a Black women's thing? And you know, what's going on, sis? And I'm like, hey, I just want to try to listen for a little bit. But thank you so much for tuning in. And the time has come. The time is now. I'm hype. Okay. Season 3, we are going to diversify who our guests are here on the Get My Life tour. If there's someone who you'd like to hear on the Get My Life tour, visit the getmylifetour.com. Fill out a guest submission form. You can fill it out for yourself. You can fill it out for someone else. And I will review, you know, the submission. And if it's a good fit, we'll be good to go, right? But including more men in the conversation, merchandise will be released for the Get My Life tour before the year concludes. You can hold me to that, you know, and I'm just really looking forward to going to the next level here with you. And I'm so grateful each and every time that you show up and that you are present and that you take the time to listen with your heart. The messages that I receive on social media from people all over the world, from so many different walks of life, have really kept me going. Here on this tour, you know, in between work and building a media enterprise, doing this podcast and life, you know, I know for sure that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And every time that someone shares their experience here on the Get My Life tour with me, it is a reminder to keep going. You know, I was having a conversation with Shia, who was a guest. We spoke about, you know, wellness here in this season. And I was just like, I just feel like I'm always getting my life. I just feel like I'm always getting, you know, I feel like I'm about to be on tour. And she was like, well, if you're not getting your life, you're not really living, right? And I was like, wow, thank you, Shia. Because I struggled. In that first season, I began to question whether the Get My Life tour was the right name for this podcast, for this lifestyle brand. And I was like, does it sound negative? I don't want to sound like getting your life is a negative thing. We always say, girl, get your life, you know, or he needs to get his life, whatever the case may be. Right. But it was confirmed time and time again in the first season, in the second season, and going into the third, that this is what I was supposed to be doing. This is how I was supposed to bring other people along. And I'm so glad that you show up. I'm so glad that you're here, that you shared freely. You know, every time you do that, my heart smiles. And it's not all about validation. You know, for me, confirmation is really important, because I don't want to do anything without meaning, without significance, without impact. Influence is not important to me. Impact is. So thank you for being a part of that impact. You know, I've had people come along this journey and try to create entities with very similar names. But you know what? It's a reminder. It's a reminder that I am on the right tour, right? Headed in the right direction. Look, I'm just going to say thank you again. Thank you. I'm thinking about my mic drop moment. And it's simple. Show up anyway. Show up anyway. There can be a million reasons why you shouldn't or why you can't. Show up anyways. I am so full. I didn't know how I was going to get through this recap because I was like, this is a lot of episodes to recap, y'all. And I really hope that you made it to the end for this mic drop moment, just everything that I've shared. If you did, congratulations, okay? You ain't win nothing, but much love to you. Look, it is the top of November. I look forward to season 3. It is the top of November. I am not going on hiatus, but I do want to give you a heads up that the Get My Life tour will resume with guests in December. I want to be fair to myself. I have some things that I'm working on. I will be sure to keep you updated. I will be back here taking center stage with fresh, new topics of discussion. So be sure to tune in. I want to give you all the opportunity to catch up on the Get My Life tour if you have not, on the episodes, and share them with others. I have some things to get in order and I can't wait to come back. Oh my gosh, so much I have in store for you. All right. If you want to stay connected with the Get My Life tour, do so. Stay tuned in, subscribe, download, share, please review. Let me know what your thoughts are. Email me at joinme@the Get My Life tour. DM the Get My Life tour. Submit, a form if you know someone, or if you are interested in being a guest here on the Get My Life tour, you can do so on thegetmylifetour.com. And of course, stay connected with the Get My Life tour on social platforms at the Get My Life tour, with the exception of Twitter because it's too long. At Get My Life tour is how you can find us there. And if you'd like to stay connected with me as a journalist, media entrepreneur, personality, all these things, I can't speak English anymore. Stay connected with me at Lydia T Blanco on social platforms. You can visit my website, lydiatblanco.com. Until then, be kind to yourself, do something nice for yourself, and show up anyways. Until the next time, it has been real. Peace.